At this point, we have talked about addiction, where it comes from, how it is not the enemy, how it is not going to attack us, and the importance of safety and feeling safe in order to heal. We've also discussed why sobriety is such an important beginning component for living a boldly satisfying life. Now we're going to get to the key that takes us from powerless to empowered. And I'm not going to drag this out and make all of this like mystery around it. I'm just going to tell you what it is because it's actually quite simple. And it might feel too simple for some folks and they want to just throw it out. But I assure you, this is the ticket. This is how it works. This is all we ever need to know for having that boldly satisfying life. The truth is that life is not a thing that we have or that we live, but it is a spectrum. It is a series of the choices we make. Now, they're not always accumulative for creating this thing called life, right? Life itself is on a spectrum. Now, down here on this side of the spectrum, we have what we would call rock bottom, right? It's our least enjoyable life. It is our furthest space away from who we truly are. On this side of the spectrum, we have what I call the boldly satisfying life, where we are in full alignment with who we are meant to be, living the life we're meant to live, being in purpose, having joy and happiness and freedom and satisfaction, all of the wonderful things that make life really fun. And in between here, we have a spectrum that we live our life. Sobriety is in the middle of this spectrum. It is that gateway that leads to that boldly satisfying life, right? We can't get over here if we don't have sobriety. So that's somewhere here in the middle. The key is that our choices make up where we are at any given point on this spectrum and where we are headed. We have to have conscious choice as a result so that we are actually proactive in the life that we are having. If we don't have conscious choice and we're just out here operating on autopilot, or we're operating from outdated subconscious programming or that initial theta state that we were in for the first 6 to 7 years of our life and we haven't explored this, then we're making unconscious choice and life is, up for grabs on what it's going to be. We're pulled in any which direction and we are reacting to life all of the time instead of being proactive in where we want to be on that spectrum. We sometimes think about the choices of our life being the really big ones. Who am I going to be in a partnership with? What job am I going to do? What's my career going to be? Where am I going to live? What school am I going to go to? Those things we often think of make up our life, but that's not really true. Certainly, they have an impact, but those big milestone moments are few and far between. In the meantime, we are making decisions every single day that impact our lives. Now, I think the brain makes something like 30,000 decisions a day. The brain is always deciding and analyzing this or that, this or that, this. So we're not talking about necessarily those decisions, but the ones that we can bring into consciousness and have some agency over. That things like our perspective, our outlook, how we are responding, the people that we have in our lives, even what we are wearing or eating, what we're consuming, what we're putting into our bodies. These little decisions are the things that make up our days, and our days make up our weeks, and our weeks are months, and our months are years, and our years are life, right? You dig it. Having the ability to consciously choose where we want to be on that spectrum is what empowerment is all about. When we are powerless over something, it only means we are in an unconscious state where we are living life passively. It's just coming in, we're accepting it, and we're putting out fires all the time, right? Does that sound familiar? Have you been in that space where it's just like, life is happening at me and I'm doing my best to stay above water? That's down on that lower part of the spectrum. that isn't very satisfying, isn't very fulfilling. Now, let's be real. Sometimes we're fine being down there on that side of the spectrum. And if we've been at rock bottom, which many of us have, then even just being a little bit over here on this spectrum feels better and can be enough for a while. We can even get comfortable down on this half of the spectrum. And there comes a time for many of us, and I imagine you might be at this time now since you're here watching this content, this mini course, where we want to be on the boldly satisfying life part of the spectrum, where we want to be co-creators in our life. We want to be proactive in the life that we're having, and that comes through conscious choice. How do you have conscious choice though, Jace? Especially if you have had this brain condition that has resulted in a lot of this autopilot behavior. Awesome question. That's exactly what we do in the Illuminatorium, by the way, is move into this state of being proactive in our lives, being conscious co-creators of our lives. But in the next section, I'm going to give you 3 of the most important components that help play into being able to make conscious choice and be an active co-creator for your life. So don't run away now that you've gotten the key. You got to figure out the how, which is what we're going to talk about next.